And the fourth angel sounded the trumpet, and a third part of the sun was smitten, and a third part of the moon, and a third part of the stars, so that a third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. Guys, we're going to show you proof and evidence. We are, in fact, in the tribulation. It's just that the proof and evidence of this is being hidden from us. What you're looking at is a fake sun device that's hiding a planet. It's hiding the truth and information of what's going on in the world. There is some kind of planet. There is some kind of sun device they're using that's close to us that's hiding these different planets. I'm not even saying one. There you can see how large it's filling a third of the sky, just like the prophecy says. This is the work of final days. I'll have links in the description.
11th, 2020. Today we will be viewing a rotating striped celestial object. It's really big. And several other sky anomalies not mentioned on mainstream news. These images were taken today from the Alaskan FAA weather cameras. The purpose of this channel is to show the viewers that we are living in the very last days according to the Holy Bible, and to explain how to stay safe in these last days. The northeast-facing camera located in Nenana, Alaska, shows a very large whitish object in the top right corner of the screen. We know that the celestial object in the picture cannot possibly be a lens flare of the sun because it's becoming partially illuminated by the light source. A lens flare cannot become partially illuminated by the object causing the lens flare. Let's quickly review 4 facts about lens flares. Lens flares of the sun don't rotate. Lens flares of the sun don't contain craters and heavily textured exteriors. Lens flares cannot go behind clouds or other structures in a picture or video. And 4, lens flares of the sun can never react to sunlight in a picture or video, such as what we are seeing here in this footage, where the celestial object is becoming partially illuminated. The northeast-facing camera at Minks Island shows NASA's light generator, the black dot, casting its reflection upon the water. This proves that the black dot is an actual piece of equipment and not a lighting or camera issue. We also see the pink reflections of the cloaking equipment in the bottom left corner. In the last few frames of this footage, we see the celestial object that is being hidden.
We would have just witnessed a solar eclipse if it hadn't been for this light generating object reflecting the sunlight, whatever it is, okay? But there is a planet there. There you can see it, and it would have blocked the real sun, which is behind it. So it would have been a solar eclipse.
We know this can't be a lens flare of the sun because we can see definite surface texture and rotation of this celestial object. Our sun only rotates once every 27 Earth days. The black dot we just saw creates a circular glare. Whenever the real sun is being totally eclipsed, the circular glare is easily blocked out by very small objects, such as this tiny street lamp, or this thin flagpole. Our real sun could never be hidden behind such small objects. Anyone wishing to know where the real sun is in this footage can watch the April 24th video published 2 weeks ago. The sun is blocked out for 4 hours every day from the far north, but this blockage isn't seen from lower latitudes, only in certain northern latitudes. And when the cloud cover is enough to block out the circular glare created by the black dot, all we see is the small light generator. Occasionally, the generator malfunctions. Last year, Russia had 3 hours of pitch black skies in midday, and the same thing happened in Switzerland on a different day. Here, we see something happening to the light generator. 90 minutes of images were removed from the camera after this frame. And here, the sun appears to be flashing wildly as it crosses the sky in a state of possible malfunction. Today we will be viewing some incredible footage of a celestial object that takes up 30% of the sky, and also surprisingly clear footage of other celestial orbs rolling across the skies of Alaska. These images were obtained yesterday, April 23rd, from the Alaska and FAA weather cameras. Each image is 10 minutes apart. These are being shown to alert the viewers we are living in the very last days according to the Holy Bible, and to explain how to stay safe in these last days. The video you are watching now came from the southeast-facing weather camera in Yukon River Bridge, Alaska. Now, for several reasons, we know it's impossible for this to be a lens flare of the sun. The most obvious reason is that it's behind the clouds in the beginning frame. Lens flares can never go behind clouds or other structures in a picture or video. Additionally, this object has a highly textured surface, making its fast rotation obvious. Our sun only rotates once every 27 Earth days, and a lens flare of the sun must look somewhat like the sun. So even the rotation of this celestial object tells us this can't possibly be a lens flare of the sun. The close-up images here are not really necessary because this object is so huge, but it was done to give viewers an idea of the incredible size of this object, which is part of a planetary system that is now close enough to cause changes to our Earth. Yesterday, 45 volcanoes were erupting simultaneously. This is historical and unprecedented. You won't hear that on the mainstream news because it might alert people to the very late hour in which we are living. This very red, highly textured celestial object was captured on the southeast-facing camera in Kotzebue, Alaska. We saw this last week on a different camera. It has a surface that looks kind of like brain coral. Once again, we know this cannot be a lens flare of the sun because its textured surface makes its rotation very obvious. In the last couple frames, it does fade into the atmospheric chemicals and become invisible. These atmospheric chemicals have recently become very heavy. I don't have names and labels for these celestial objects. In the Bible's book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 25, Jesus clearly tells us that we will see signs in the sky when we are very near the end of the age. In order to understand what you are about to see, it's necessary for you to realize that the manufactured light in these videos is close to the Earth and passes in front of objects in our sky, such as is this case with this older footage from Attawapiskat in Ontario, Canada. The manufactured light comes into the video from the left, but when the real sun goes behind this mammoth geosynchronous structure in space, NASA's artificial light passes in front of this object, causing the sun to appear to suddenly shrink down to 1/5 its previous size. The sky and the landscape suddenly darken as the real sun is blocked out for 4 hours behind this object. NASA's manufactured light passes over top of this object, lighting it up. It lights up what's behind it as well as what's in front of it. Once the manufactured glare completely passes by this object, the real sun then emerges from behind, once again lighting up the landscape and the sky again. Of course, it would be ridiculous to think that we could actually see a structure like this behind the real sun 93 million miles away. That's just an impossibility, especially with the naked eye or with these cameras that don't have special light filtering lenses. This object that we're seeing here is always visible from this camera, but only on rare days when the atmospheric chemicals aren't heavy enough to hide it. And that rarely happens anymore, if at all. However, a new lens was installed recently on this camera which produces a vertical glare in order to obscure the structure from view. This is just another sign that we are living in the very last days. Now that you know about NASA's circular glare in front of objects in our sky, you will understand why the same thing is happening here with an absolutely enormous celestial object, the bottom of which is hidden behind the horizon. The atmospheric chemicals make many of these objects nearly transparent, as you can see here. But when the manufactured light passes over top of these objects, it lights them up, or at least lights part of them up, as is the case here. We know that this object cannot possibly be a lens flare of the sun because it's becoming partially illuminated by the light source. A lens flare can never become partially illuminated by the light source causing the lens flare. In some of these frames, the light source is definitely illuminating part of the celestial object. The powers that be can scale down and in some cases completely remove the earthquake monitors around the world so that the public isn't aware of the incredible increase in frequency and magnitude of earthquakes currently shaking our planet. But they cannot remove or hide the 45 volcanoes that are currently erupting all at one time. Untold trillions have been spent to hide this inbound planetary system from the unknowing masses. The reason for all the deception is because the enemies of Christ do not want you to know how close to the end we are, nor do they want you to turn your life over to Jesus while you still have time.
Now you can see why the Antichrist wants additional funding for his Space Force, because you can see in the logo that there is a sun-generating object that they're building, and they've built to generate light from the sun to obscure what you can see there, the stars, the sun, because there is an additional planet or planets obscuring the sun, fulfilling the fourth trumpet. And it shall come to pass in that day, says the Lord God, that I will cause the sun to go down at noon, and I will darken the earth in the clear day. That's exactly what you'll see take place in Siberia. This happened a couple years ago, right in the middle of the day, at noon.
We're going to take a look at an unsolved mystery from Siberia. We're here at thewatchers.news. We're going to look at this article and an article from the area, the Siberian Times, as the mystery deepens, as nobody can seem to figure out exactly what happened, as Arctic Siberia completely dark for a period of 3 hours on July 20th, 2018. The area that we're talking about is right here, just a couple of 100 miles south of Yana Bay, right in this area. And this time of year, it's daylight 24/7. To kind of put things in perspective, it's just inside the Arctic Circle at around the 67 degree north latitude. So that's the area we're talking about. And this time of year, it does stay daylight all the time. But as it turns out, this mysterious event occurred during the lunchtime hours, basically 11:30 to 2 p.m., so it would have been daylight regardless. Story goes on to say many reports came in of this phenomenon. People said they couldn't see a thing without switching their lights on. They took torches outside to walk around, but people really didn't feel comfortable outside, as it was kind of an eerie feeling, people are saying. At first, one person thought they saw a thunderstorm coming in. The air went dark, and got darker and darker. And they said, but this time it was unlike anything that they'd ever seen before. Some residents are saying that they saw some sort of a flash of light first. They're considering this a weird phenomenon. Some people thought that maybe it was caused from raging wildfires in other districts, but officials have expressed doubts over this theory, and again, that was just a theory. Nobody really knows. In fact, I think the wildfires would have had to have been exceptionally close to this area to completely block out the sun. You're talking peak solar noon, and it went completely dark. It wasn't like it was evening or early morning. 11:30 to 2 p.m., 12 would be peak solar. Sun is directly overhead. So whatever it was very thick. As you can tell by the pictures, this is a picture here of someone driving with their headlights on. People who live here for many years said they've never witnessed anything like this. The darkness was pitch black. It didn't come at once, but it grew gradually. The sun was gone, and I'm quoting, the sun was gone from 11:30 to 1400. That's 2 p.m. And again, that's right in the middle of solar noon. So the sun would have been directly overhead. But it was, for whatever reasons, pitch dark. Local officials also said there was a sharp drop in the temperature, which reminded me of if you've ever experienced a total solar eclipse, the temperature drops. And some of these pictures, if you look at them closely, it reminds you of a solar eclipse. Like, for instance, maybe that one, or that one's of an area where there are wildfires burning, and that's what the sky looks like. This isn't the area that the day turned to night. But if you look at some of these pictures, you do kind of get the feeling that, okay, it was some sort of an eclipse. But it was not an eclipse, or at least not one that anybody knew of. That one looks like it could be an eclipse. A total solar eclipse does affect the temperature, but that's not what happened here. In fact, nobody really knows what happened here. Some other people are saying there's just all kinds of mixed reports. Some people thought they saw smoke. People thought maybe they saw dust. Some people thought maybe they saw a thunderstorm, but it never did rain. They saw clouds. They just simply don't know. But the bottom line is the people that live here, that are used to 24/7 daylight during this time of year, they don't know what they could have possibly seen. They can't explain it. And right now, there is no official explanation for what went on over here. People are very mystified. I mean, they're looking at it from all possible angles, but they cannot come up with a conclusive definition of what really went on over here. There's a picture there, and you can see it is completely dark. So again, this is from right here, northern Siberia, a couple hundred miles south of the East Siberian Sea, Yana Bay, right in here. And it was an area the size of Italy that went black. Multiple districts reporting the same phenomenon, temperature changing, went black outside like it was nighttime, and there is no night. It's daylight 24/7, and not only that, it was at solar noon, so the sun should have been directly overhead, but they couldn't see it. Temperature dropped, very strange phenomenon. It almost looks like a solar eclipse. And speaking of eclipses, there will be a lunar eclipse at the end of this week. Don't miss this week's deep red blood moon, the longest lunar eclipse of this century. Story dated July 23rd, 2018, yesterday. The eclipse is this Friday, the 27th. And I'm going to show you a map of visibility and the greatest visibility and who will not be able to see this lunar eclipse. This article here shows you how the eclipse works. Got a couple of diagrams here that are actually very good in explaining how the eclipse phenomenon works. If you are in these locations, you will not be able to see
parts of Siberia experienced a bit of a bizarre phenomenon last week when the sun completely disappeared for several hours. The incident took place in the Russian Republic of Yakutia, also called Sakha, home to some of the coldest cities in the world. Notes Live Science. With less than 2 hours of sunlight in the winter, in early July, they get up to 24 hours of sunlight, down to about 20 hours by mid-July. So locals in the districts of Novitinsky and Zygansky were reportedly a bit dismayed when the sun disappeared for about 3 hours in the middle of the day on Friday, July 20th. The sun went out around 11 a.m. and didn't come back until about 2 p.m. One resident said, reported the Siberian Times, "I couldn't see a thing without switching lights on. We took torches to walk outside, but actually no one wanted to be on the street because the feeling was as if something heavy in the air was pressing on your chest." When the sun eventually returned, everything had been covered in a thick layer of dust.
In each case, you can see that the sun was obscured for 4 hours. That's a third of the day, just like it says in Revelation about the fourth trumpet. So this prophecy is fulfilled, and we are in the tribulation. And we know this from the sign of the woman clothed with the sun in September 22nd, 2017, issuing the trumpets of Revelation. So there are celestial objects out there that would have obscured the sun, but we have governments hiding this information, hiding this truth from us. But we are in the tribulation. We are in the times that the scriptures have prophesied about. So, guys, all we can say is repent. The kingdom of God is at hand. Turn your life to Jesus Christ with all your heart, because these are the last days.